around the cross piece of the ankh. Here you have ankhs that are actually suspended from line. And it struck me, just as the crook and the flail are tools, why aren't the rest of these things tools too? A menorah is just a simple candlestick. A cross is just a cheap way to kill criminals. Here you have two tools that acquired tremendous religious significance. Did these Egyptian symbols have their distant origin as tools become respected as symbols of power and efficiency and wind up in their alphabet? All of a sudden, the hieroglyphs took on a new meaning. This is a lotus scepter. It's a scepter of a lotus. Oops. Well, I'm not a florist. That does not look like a lotus to me. It mirrors identically the mason's mallets that were found all over the Giza Plateau. Here we have Horus, and he's got his ankh in one hand. He's got a belt with a carabiner right at his center of gravity in the other, and he's got this stupid-looking scepter. And that's a pretty stupid-looking scepter until you turn it upside down. It's a pickaxe. I went and bought one. I actually took Papyrus down to Home Depot, and I said, do you have any of these? So we went and got one. It wasn't gold-plated. And I myself personally was scooting around a 590-pound piece of granite with this scepter. Any way you look at that, that's a chisel. I mean, it's a chisel. When you look at Horus, you see that thing on his head? It's a sun disk. It's a disk of the sun. And I said, but the sun is spherical, and that's not. And I'm like, yeah, stupid. It's a flat, polished, reflective surface. It's a mirror. The rock quarry's 3 miles away. So you go, hey, Fred, I need 4 limestone blocks on the north face, and in 2 seconds, the quarry master knows what you need and where to send it. That's why they call it a sun disk. Joe, go get me a sun disk so I can call Fred. And here you have these beautiful burnished mirrors in the museum. Now, this is the Egyptian symbol for rope. Now, if you had to draw an Egyptian symbol for rope, would it look like that? Would it be in a coil or something else? What are these things? This is called a collar. And using this nylon collar, I myself personally was arranging a 30-foot telephone pole exactly where I wanted it, using this collar. So I started hanging out with sailors, and I had them make me one, and sure enough, I used this, and that works just as well. So if you're trying to align a column or a rock, that's why they shaped it like that. Now, these vultures are all over Egyptian art, holding these symbols of kingly power. Has anybody once ever seen a vulture flying around with this symbol? No, I haven't either. But anyway, if you look at that knot, this is called a lark's foot knot. Is this where they attach the kites? Were they using this specific knot to attach kites? Why do you have birds attached to line? Is this a multi-layer kite? If you look at the aspect ratio of these wings, the length to the width, there's no bird with that kind of an aspect ratio. Now, this was a kite developed in 1967 by a gentleman named William Rock. He was a logger from Oregon, and he designed this multi-layer kite to move multi-ton logs from this forest to the sawmill using nothing but wind. And if you use a multi-layer kite, you don't need a kite the size of Texas. You have a very controllable surface area that allows you to move tons. Now, of course, you have an idea of verification as part of the process. So what I discovered was a diamond-shaped kite flies at about a 45-degree angle, a parafoil about 80, but with that long, narrow aspect ratio flies at almost a 90-degree angle. You can get lift almost at a 90-degree angle. So here I am in Tecate, Mexico. You can see the kite with the long, narrow aspect ratio. There I am on the ground, and this kite is lifting me off the desert floor. This young kite surfer had to throw his body on top of me to keep me from getting pulled up. This job does have some benefits. Then I get a call from a kite guy. He said, you need to shellac your kite. You need the linen. The linen is porous. You need to shellac your kite so you can hold the wind envelope. So what do I know about shellac? Nothing. So I got a hold of Dr. Michael Klein, the nation's foremost authority on scarab beetles, and I said, and shellac comes from Shellac is a substance excreted by scale insects. And I had never looked at the bum end of a scarab beetle before, but sure enough, there's 3 drops of reddish-brown effluent being collected in a bowl. So I got a hold of Dr. Michael Klein, the nation's foremost scarab entomologist, and he was very excited. He said his dad used to scoop up scarab exudate. He was born and raised in Nebraska. He said his dad used to scoop up scarab exudate and slap it on the barn to keep the wind out. So now he's got some students evaluating the commercial viability of scarab exudate, which is one job I do not want. My whole life, I was told the Egyptians did not have pulleys. The Egyptians did not have pulleys. Did you know Archimedes was in Alexandria when he invented the pulley? These pulleys have been found all over the Giza Plateau. Once you realize that, the artwork looks different. Is this a pulley? One of the things, if you had to pick an animal to represent rope, what would it be? A snake. So when I was doing my History Channel documentary, they hired someone to be an honest critic of my work. And Colin said, Maureen, your theory about the symbols is completely wrong. The Egyptians drew exactly what they saw. For example, here's a boat, it has a sail, it has a rudder. And I said, yeah, and look it, you have an ankh driving the boat. And you have rope that morphs into snakes. Rope that morphs into snakes. Are you telling me they lashed cobras to the boat? And my husband says, yeah, it makes them row faster. Is that a pulley? What's that? This is my favorite sign in the Cairo Museum. It says, examples of linen, fiber, and rope. Does anybody see anything in that showcase that is neither linen, fiber, or rope? But the Egyptians did not have pulleys. And I'm like, really? Anyway, let's say, for example, you're erecting an obelisk in the kite dye. How do you hold the rope? How do you hold the rope? You're erecting a 450-ton or 16-ton obelisk. How do you hold the rope? Well, there's nobody that knows how to control rope like sailors. So I hooked up with some sailors in Marina del Rey, and they took me out on the Pendragon, this magnificent America's Cup ship. Do not call it a boat or they will throw you overboard. So they had me on this ship, running back and forth on the deck like a galley slave, trying to understand about line and control. And we get back into the park and the harbor, and I said, that's it? That's all you got? Now, this is a multi-million-dollar ship. Everything on this ship is top dollar. And they said, well, when everything fails, we pull out Old Faithful. And I said, what's that? It's a clam cleat. It's about 6 inches long, this long. It holds a spinnaker under full sail. A spinnaker under full sail. No moving parts. You can move the rope one way. You can't pull it the other. Well, did the Egyptians have clam cleats? So I opened up my great new book of Egyptian hieroglyphs. What's that? Oops. What's that? Uh-oh, how do I get rid of that? What? All right, I need a teenager. Okay, thank you. So I'm like, what is that? It's a canal. The Egyptians say it's a canal. And I'm like, well, it doesn't look like a canal. It looks like a clam cleat. So I decided, well, I needed to try it. So 5,000 years ago, you couldn't swing a dead cat without hitting a rock carver. You try finding one today. I was hanging out in mortuaries, artist stores. I finally found this artist who carved me a clam cleat out of marble. It's this big. You can pull the hemp rope with 2 fingers one direction. The 16-ton obelisk could not pull it the other direction. 2 fingers, 16 tons. Now we looked at pictures individually. Now let's start looking at them collectively. Once we realize these symbols individually, is this the kite? Are those the pulleys? And here we have Horus. He's on his way to work. He's got his pickaxe in one hand. He's got his ankh in the other. We've renamed him Fred Flintstone because we think he's the quarry master. Now, you know that dumb Egyptian stance that's 1 foot in front of the other, 1 hand in front of the other? This isn't typical human greeting behavior or submissive behavior.